We're in AD 30 and Event 31, which really has two parts to it. There's two parables told here, and we're going to take them one at a time. But one of the things that I've talked to you before about is making sure that you're looking at context. At the first blush, if you took this parable all by itself, pulled it out of Scripture, you'd say this was a parable about being persistent in prayer. Now, there's nothing wrong with being persistent in prayer, especially if you know you're praying within God's will. I certainly did that for the salvation of my brother and my father. But there's also a very important part of this parable that you have to understand. This is told to the same group of people, the Pharisees and the disciples, right behind as part of his teaching about his coming again and the rapture of the church. So this parable is not about persistence in prayer. While there's no problem with persistence in prayer if it's in God's will, that's not what this parable is teaching. This parable is teaching that justice will come. We just have to be patient. We have to be persistent in believing that justice will come. And so here's the parable. The parable is to not lose heart, but to continue in prayer about being taken advantage of, or the wicked enduring and the wicked prospering in the times that we live in. And here's what he says: a certain city, a certain judge who did not fear God and did not respect man. Now, that certainly is not God. So we know that this petition or this persistence was not to God. It says a widow of that city kept coming to this judge who was not in fear of God and not respecter of man, and she wanted protection by the law against her opponents, those that were trying to take advantage of her. She wanted the judge to intercede and protect her from those that were coming after a widow with no man to defend her. And he was unwilling for a long time, but he finally realized that it would be easier to go ahead and give her the protection than to continue to hear her petitions. Now, that is not a picture of God. God is not one that's going to give in to our petitions just because we continue in repetition asking for the same things over and over again. The whole petition has to be within God's will, and not just because we're persistent. I can't persistently ask for a Mercedes-Benz or a Rolls-Royce and expect God to give me one just because he's tired of hearing me ask for one. And so it's very important to realize that this is dealing with an unjust judge and not a just judge. But Jesus ties it into a just judge. He says, listen to what the unjust judge said. He finally decided it was easier to just go ahead and give this lady her petition because it was easier than continuing to listen to her. That's not the way God deals. But he says this very quickly. He says, shall not God bring justice for his elect? Now, the crying day and night that he talks about here is the injustice of this world. And he says, remember, this ties into the rapture and his coming again. And it says, he will bring justice. And so we have to be patient. We know God hears our cries for the unjustness of this world, the unfairness of this world, for the wicked to prosper. But he says, be patient. God knows. God hears your cries of pain. He hears your unjust actions that are being taken against you, and he will bring justice one day. That becomes even more apparent that this is for the disciples and the Pharisees when he tells the second parable, which is found in Luke chapter 18, verses 9 through 14. This first parable is in Luke 18, verses 1 through 8. But we'll deal with that second parable tomorrow. Don't think that the wicked are getting their way. Don't think that God doesn't hear your cries about the injustice. God will. He will bring justice. And it's tied in to his coming again. That's when justice will come. And when he raptures out the church, there'll be justice. And so we need to just be patient. He hears our cries, and he will bring justice. And that's my thought for the day. God bless you and have a great day.